All right. I think we can all see my screen. So okay. So for a few minutes, I'll make us not able to chat. So don't worry. We can chat afterwards so that we can stay focused. Okay. So let's talk about some key milestones around cybersecurity, data privacy in general. And anywhere you are in the world today, I can almost say for certainty within your corporate setting, some key things will come up. The popular ones you will see right now will be like GDPR, which is mostly for European member citizens, right? CCPA for California residents, PIPEDA for our Canadian, you know, brothers and sisters, right? So those are three big laws I know you would likely come across immediately around North America. That is a big one out there that we have to always think about. That, okay, as we do our privacy work, short of every state, because every state will have their own internal state privacy laws too. But the big ones, typical, California always have their own thing naturally. So I'm not surprised about CCPA, but they were the pioneers as the main state in the US outside of the capital that had a privacy law. GDPR is a big one. A lot of organizations today, those guys don't mess around. You would get fined. They don't play games at all, and they will fine you very heavy. It's almost like they're already looking for ways to just make money. So they will find you crazy, and their fine is not pretty. So people don't mess with them at all. So if you have European presence, I'll give you a story in the past. Before GDPR kicked in, they used to have a safe harbor law, right? Similar to GDPR. And I was working with a client in Germany in this case. And what typically would have been what I could have sent with a flash online, because of the laws and regulation, I could not do that then. So think about it, a client no minding flying you to a different country from North America with a first class just for you to go install something for them. That is crazy, right? Yeah. Because of that law, and they didn't mind then. Okay, yeah, for GDPR, we can't just send files or we can't send information for the purpose of GDPR. Then it was called Safe Harbor, sorry, not before GDPR kicked in. So they take it serious. It's a very serious thing, and they will find you crazy for it. So these are the three popular ones out there today. In general, when we talk about data protection impact assessment, which we'll get into later today, we're talking about what exactly is the asset we are protecting in general, what is the scope of what we are trying to build and protect in general. We're going to think about the process around it. We're going to understand the activities the data is really doing. For example, how is our data stored? What is the data used for, right? At the end of the day, what are the risks around the data? Then the organization will sign off on the data itself at the end of the day. But once we get into the practicality of this, you'll see what I mean. Some general common mistakes, one, sometimes people collect too much information. And that's why for most of us with our devices, you will see Congress call a lot of these social media folks into Congress for a lot of meetings, public hearing, because a lot of times they collect too much information. You know, it's crazy because if you use Google, for example, believe it or not, if you don't disable your geolocation intentionally, every step, everything you do with your device is known. I'll give an example. Some was the last year, so I was in Europe for a conference, and my my spouse had a record of everything I was doing. So everything, everywhere I was going, she was, "Oh, I saw you went here." So I was thinking in my mind that this is creepy. How do you know? How do you know? So later I realized it was because my my geolocation was on, and she had access to a device that I had at home. So everything, every movement, every step was, is known, right? So the reality is, um, sometimes your service provider, they collect tons of data. As a matter of fact, some of your devices today, if you hold them and you enable voiceover, if you have conversation on certain things, when we hopped in, you've opted in to say, you can collect my voiceover. And now don't forget, our voiceover has changed now. With your communication, AI will just start tracking what you talked about and start directing advertisement to it, right? So now that's why you see when you're talking on the phone or you're speaking, the system can automatically identify and start sending you ads based on that conversation, right? So another thing is lacking of transparency. At the end of the day, yes, you are collecting my data, but I need to know how the data would be used also, right? Another big one, inadequate data protection. So it's possible you are collecting my data and suddenly I wake up, you tell me my data has been compromised. All right. Then after further investigation, we realized the compromise is a result of lack of encryption, right? Or lack of access control. Whatever the reason is, right? That is serious stuff. Then of course, another one, ignoring user rights, you know? So it means if I have a right for you not to opt me in, that right should be spelled out. That's why before you collect people's SMS information, for example, it will give you the option you can opt out. It's a law. You have to give the option. I can decide, yes, as a customer, you have a right to my information already, but you also have a right to give me an opt-out option so that people can say, okay, sorry, no, don't send me more information, right? So those are the things that are very critical right now. So data is a real big global concern because now it's an essential commodity. People can use it to make billions of dollars right now because everything is data right now, right? So that's something to just remember also. Some general principles in terms of privacy, just to give us that general overlay. um, One, fairness, it has to be processed in the framework of legal norm, right? So whatever data you collect, it has to be in the spirit of fairness. Second thing is the transparency. The key is the disclosure and transparency. So if you are using my data, I need to know what you are using my data for. I think that's standard, right? But these are the concern globally right now that people have. It's not you collecting data that is the problem. It's giving the customers the ability to understand what and how their data would be used for. At the minimum, they should have an idea of what their data will be used for, right? And here we talk about securing personal data in general. What are the key things? I think these are things we can all agree on. We should have good password, two-factor authentication. We limit the sharing of information to only on as needed basis, right? Because at the end of the day, the crazy thing is that a lot of companies you opt in for their service, you may not know it, right? You and I will not know this. When you click on the opt-in services, some of their statement states they can share your information to their third-party partners. But let's face it, none of us will sit down and read all those legal terms, right? I just want to use your solution. Boom, I'm done. But sometimes I've opted in without taking time to look at the legal part of it, right? And then legally, you can start sending me advertisements. So the question is that, you know, um, they protected themselves legally. You are getting exposed to a lot of unnecessary information, and sometimes your data is breached. Now, when your data is breached, it's on them to report it according to the legal reporting requirements. If they don't do that, that's a different story. They can be sued, class action lawsuit. Sometimes it becomes a criminal case. We let the government figure that part out, right? So just want to call that out too. Only collect what you need. I think that's fundamental, right? Now, guess what is coming up again? Third party risk management, because many times a lot of vendors, your provider is using their third party, right? So it means within those same third party they are using, they should have appropriate access control, they should have security policies and encryption. So we are seeing the same pattern. I'm sure you can now tie it together that, why it's important, our third party risk is equally important, but this always shows up because with your data privacy and private and data security, it's not just applicable to me, but also the third party I'm using, right? So it's equally important to make sure they are also in compliance. Another thing you see a lot is because we have to make provision that there could be a potential breach, right? So for us, for a third party, we have to make sure they have incident response, and those incident response plan would identify the roles and responsibility of everybody. If there's a breach, they have to also have a way we can identify our data assets, right? So you can see asset management is sneaking in here. Then, of course, we have to also constantly train our employees. So, security awareness and training has to be there all the time, also. Yeah, training employee, remember again, we have to constantly have an ongoing thing. It's not a one time thing, it has to be ongoing all the time. Key topics that are needed around data security, data classification, access control. We select those key topics and keep training our employee. Sometimes we customize the training depending on the roles. Good example. There are some, let me ask us, what do you think? Let me just throw this out for a second. Who do you think are the biggest target for a phishing attack, typically, for a phishing campaign? You can type. Let me see what you guys think. I love that. Yes. Wale Akin. Yes. Perfect. Yep. You guys address it. You got it.